On Thanksgiving morning, my mother didn't ask me to carve the turkey. She asked me to sign away my future. 83 relatives sat quietly around tables at the Riverside Country Club, forks resting, champagne untouched, watching as my mother's attorney slid a leather portfolio toward me like we were closing a business deal. Inside were inheritance waiver documents, notarized and ready. "This makes everything clean," my mother said, her voice steady as a gavel. "Jason needs stability. You've already built your career." My stepbrother Jason sat 2 seats down, eyes on his plate, suddenly fascinated by the centerpiece. My stepfather Robert stood at the head of the table, jaw tight, saying nothing. Then my mother's best friend Margaret, a witness signature already dried on page 3, stood and began a toast about family sacrifice and doing what's right for those who need us most. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why I deserved this on a day meant for gratitude. I sat there, breathing slowly, while my entire inheritance was dismantled between crystal glasses and linen napkins folded into swans. My name is Sarah Chen, and that Thanksgiving wasn't a celebration. It was a courtroom disguised as dinner. If you're listening, tell me where you're watching from, and if your family ever made you feel like your success meant you deserved less, stay with me, because what silence became next is the part they never planned for. Growing up, people always told me how lucky I was. My mother remarried when I was 18, right before I left for college. Robert was kind, successful, everything my biological father wasn't. They had this beautiful blended family narrative they loved to share at parties. His son, from his first marriage, Jason, was 4 years younger than me. Still in high school. Still figuring things out. "You're both part of this family now," my mother would say, smiling in that way that looked warm in photographs but felt like a warning in person. "We take care of each other." For a while, I believed that. I worked my way through Boston University, took out loans my mother said I didn't need to ask them about. Waitress nights and weekends. When I graduated and landed a position at a small estate law firm, my mother seemed proud. She came to my graduation. She posted about it on Facebook. But she didn't offer to help with my student debt. "You're so independent," she'd say when I'd visit their Brookline home, where Jason still lived at 24, still figuring things out. "You don't need us like he does." I told myself that was fine. That's what adults did. They handled their own problems. They didn't ask for help. When I made junior partner at 31, my mother called it wonderful news, and then immediately pivoted to how Jason was thinking about maybe starting a business, something with cryptocurrency, and wouldn't it be nice if the family could support him? I didn't realize then that independent was just another word for expendable. The pattern started small. Holidays where plans were made without asking my schedule. Family investments I wasn't consulted about. 3 years ago, Jason asked to borrow $15,000 to get his feet under him. I said no, not because I didn't have it, but because I'd watched him blow through money before, watched my mother refill that well every time it ran dry. My mother didn't speak to me for 2 months. When we finally had coffee, she said I didn't understand what it meant to be family. That real family helped each other without keeping score. I swallowed it, because swallowing things had always kept the peace. What I didn't see then was that peace was never real. It was just the quiet before they made their move. The invitation came in October. Handwritten. My mother's perfect script on cream cardstock. A Thanksgiving celebration of gratitude and family. Riverside Country Club. "We'd love to celebrate your success, Sarah. It's been too long since we gathered everyone together." I should have known. My mother didn't do grand gestures for me, but I'd just made senior partner. For the first time in 13 years, I felt like maybe I'd earned something she couldn't dismiss. Maybe this was her way of saying she saw me. I bought a new dress. Navy blue. Professional but elegant. I even practiced a small speech in case they asked me to say something. About gratitude. About family. About how hard work pays off when you just keep going. The country club looked beautiful. Fall florals everywhere. Tables set for nearly 90 people. Extended family I barely knew. Robert's colleagues from his investment firm. My mother's book club friends. Even the partners from Robert's estate lawyer's office. I remember thinking how strange it was that this many people would show up for Thanksgiving dinner at a club instead of someone's home. But my mother had always liked spectacle. I found my seat. Place card in my mother's handwriting. Sarah Chen. JD, like my law degree, was part of the table arrangement. Jason sat to my right, unusually quiet. My mother sat across from me, composed, hands folded like she was posing for a portrait. Robert stood at the head of the main table, holding a wine glass he wasn't drinking from. That's when I noticed the attorney. Andrew Fitzgerald, Robert's estate lawyer. I'd met him once, briefly, at a charity function. He was sitting 3 seats down, briefcase at his feet, not eating. My mother tapped her glass. The room went silent. "Thank you all for being here on this special day," she began. Her voice carried that practiced warmth she used when she wanted something. "We're here to celebrate family, to celebrate gratitude, and to celebrate Sarah's incredible success." She gestured to me. A few people clapped politely. I felt my face heat. Sarah has built an impressive career. Senior partner at 32. She's proven she doesn't need anyone's help. She's proven she can stand entirely on her own. The way she said it made my chest tighten. There was something under those words. Something sharp. "Which is why," she continued, "Robert and I have made a decision about our estate. We want to ensure our resources go where they're needed most." She nodded at Jason. Jason is still finding his path. He needs support, stability, and as a family, we provide that. Andrew Fitzgerald opened his briefcase. My mother's smile didn't waver. "We've prepared documents to formalize this, to make everything clean and fair. Sarah, you've already succeeded. Jason deserves the same chance." Fitzgerald stood, walked to my seat, and placed the leather portfolio in front of me. I opened it. The words swam. "Inheritance Waiver Agreement, Voluntary Relinquishment of Claims. Witnessed by Margaret Holloway, Patricia Chen, Andrew Fitzgerald, Esquire." My mother had signed already. Robert had signed. They were waiting for me. "This transfers Robert's estate, in its entirety, to Jason upon Robert's passing," my mother said calmly, as if we were discussing seating arrangements. $2.3 million. The Brookline property, the investment accounts, all of it. You'll sign your acknowledgement that you have no claim. I looked at Robert. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked at Jason. He was staring at the tablecloth like he could disappear into the pattern. "And what do I get?" My voice came out quieter than I wanted. My mother blinked, as if the question confused her. "You get your career, Sarah. Your independence. Everything you've worked for. You don't need his money. Jason does." 83 people watched me, waiting. I felt it then. Not anger. Grief. For every time I paid my own way while Jason got handed opportunities. Every time I worked late while he slept in. Every time my mother called my success a reason I deserved less. For years, I'd thought being low maintenance was a virtue, that not asking for help meant I was strong. But sitting there, staring at those documents, I finally understood. I wasn't strong in their eyes. I was just easy to erase. My hands started shaking. Not much. Just enough that I felt it. I looked at my mother and heard her voice in my head from 1,000 small moments. "You don't need us like he does." I stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. A few people jumped. My voice didn't rise, but it didn't hide either. "No." The room froze. My mother's smile faltered. "Sarah." I raised my hand. Not aggressive, just steady. "I'm not signing." "You're being unreasonable," my mother said. And now there was an edge there. "This is what's best for the family." "This is what's best for you," I said. My heart was pounding, but I didn't push it down. "You want me to subsidize your choices. You want me to agree that my brother's future matters more than mine because I had the audacity to build something without your help." I picked up the portfolio. Not like evidence, like garbage. "I won't," Robert finally spoke. "Sarah, your mother and I have thought very carefully. You didn't think about me at all." I looked at Jason. He still wouldn't look up. "Did you even ask for this? Or did she decide you needed rescuing?" He said nothing. My mother stood now. "If you walk away from this, you walk away from us. From this family." I took a breath. The kind that comes before the truth. Then I guess I'm walking. I turned and left while the room stayed perfectly, suffocatingly quiet. If you're watching this, pause for a moment. Have you ever been pushed so far that silence stopped being protection and became power instead? Tell me where you're listening from. Because what I did next didn't come from revenge. It came from clarity. I didn't go anywhere dramatic after I left the club. No tearful drive to the coast. No airport escape. I went back to my apartment in Cambridge, dropped my bag by the door, and sat at my desk. For the first time that day, something felt familiar. I'm an estate lawyer. My job isn't revenge. It's reading documents. And something about that portfolio had felt wrong. Not just morally wrong. Legally wrong. I opened my laptop and pulled up Robert's original estate plan from 3 years ago. The one I'd helped him understand when he'd asked casual questions at a family barbecue about asset protection and spousal rights. He'd been worried about fairness, about making sure everyone was taken care of if something happened to him. Back then, He'd talked about splitting everything equally between biological children. His son, from his first marriage, Michael, who lived in Seattle and barely spoke to him, and me, because even though I wasn't his biological daughter, he said I'd earned it. That will didn't mention Jason at all, because Jason wasn't Robert's son. Jason was my mother's son from her first marriage. Robert had no legal obligation to him. I pulled up the Massachusetts estate law databases I used for work. Searched Robert's name in the public probate filings. Found his updated will from 6 months ago, the one Andrew Fitzgerald had filed. I compared them side by side. The original, assets split between Michael and Sarah Chen, with spousal provisions for my mother. The updated version, everything to Jason Chen, with Sarah Chen explicitly excluded. But here's the thing about wills. Changes require witnesses, signatures, proper execution under state law. And when I looked at the witness signatures on the updated will, I recognized one of them. Margaret Holloway, my mother's best friend, who had also witnessed the documents at Thanksgiving dinner, who was not, according to Massachusetts law, an acceptable witness because she was named as executor and had a financial interest in the estate. The will was invalid. One phone call to confirm. I dialed Michael's number, Robert's biological son. We'd met twice. He answered on the third ring. Sarah? Is everything okay? Michael, did your father talk to you about changing his will? Silence. Then, no. Why? Because 6 months ago, someone filed an updated will that cuts both of us out entirely. Another pause. That's not possible. Dad told me last year he wanted to make sure we were both taken care of. He felt guilty about the divorce, about not being around. He said he was setting things up so it was fair. Did he ever mention Jason? I asked. My mother's son? No, never. I heard him typing. Send me what you have. I'll call our attorney. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just forwarded the documents and felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Control. By the time I went to bed that night, I'd drafted a formal challenge to the will. Not for revenge. For accuracy. Because the law doesn't care about family dynamics or who deserves what. It cares about proper execution. And someone had gotten sloppy. The calls started the next morning. My mother, 17 times before noon. I didn't answer. Robert, twice. I let it go to voicemail. Jason, once, a rambling message about how he didn't ask for any of this, how it wasn't his fault. I deleted it halfway through. By Monday, Michael's attorney had filed a formal challenge. By Wednesday, the probate court flagged the witnesses as potentially conflicted. By Friday, Andrew Fitzgerald was facing an ethics review, and by the following Tuesday, my mother showed up at my office. She looked smaller than I remembered. Tired. She didn't wait for me to invite her in. You need to stop this, she said. You're embarrassing the family. I didn't stand. Didn't offer her a seat. I'm correcting a legal error. This is about Robert's will. About his wishes. No, I said. This is about your wishes. Robert's actual will split everything between Michael and me. You changed it. Her face went pale. I didn't. Margaret witnessed it. She's also the executor. That's a conflict of interest under Massachusetts law. The will is invalid. I kept my voice level. Professional. And before you try to say Robert wanted this, I've seen the original. I helped him draft it. She sat down then, without asking. Jason needs this. He doesn't have what you have. That's not my problem. He's your brother. Half-brother, I corrected. And he's 24 years old. If he needs help, he can work for it like I did. My mother's hands twisted in her lap. You've always been so cold, so unforgiving. I felt it then. That old instinct to apologize, to smooth it over, to make her feel better about hurting me. But I didn't. You humiliated me in front of 80 people. You tried to erase me from a will that legally included me. You committed fraud. I leaned forward. I'm not cold. I'm done. She stood, unsteady. If you go through with this, I'll never forgive you. I looked at her fully. You never valued me to begin with, so there's nothing to lose. She left without another word. The fallout moved faster than I expected. The probate court invalidated the fraudulent will within 3 weeks. Robert's original estate plan was reinstated. Michael and I would split everything 50-50. 2.3 million became 1.15 million each. Not that I needed it, but it was never about the money. It was about the principle. My mother tried to contest it. Her attorney argued she deserved spousal provisions, which she did, and those were honored. But Jason got nothing, because Robert's will had never included him, and my mother's attempt to insert him had broken the law. Jason called me once after the ruling. I didn't know, he he said. I swear I didn't know she forged it. Maybe, I said. But you were willing to take it. I thought it was real. I thought Dad wanted. Robert isn't your dad, I said, not unkindly. And even if he was, you don't get to inherit someone else's life just because you haven't built your own. He hung up. I never heard from him again. My mother sent one text 3 months later. I hope you're happy. I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't fixing her mess. I wasn't absorbing her damage. I wasn't standing between her and the consequences of her choices. I was standing in my own life, watching the truth do what truth does when it's finally allowed to exist. And the strangest part? It wasn't watching her fall that surprised me. It was realizing how much of my life I'd spent holding her up. I didn't win anything after that. There was no celebration. No moment where everything suddenly felt light. What I felt was quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after you stop carrying other people's weight. My mother stopped calling. The family stopped inviting me to events. Jason blocked me on social media. Robert sent one email apologizing for how things went but never explained what he was apologizing for. For a while, people asked if I missed them. If I regretted it. If the money was worth losing my family over. The truth? I slept better than I had in years. I stopped bracing myself every time my phone buzzed. Stopped replaying old holidays in my head, trying to figure out what I'd done wrong. Stopped wondering what version of me they were selling to other people when I wasn't in the room. One Saturday morning, I caught my reflection in my apartment window. Tired, older, but steady. And I realized something important. I didn't lose my family that Thanksgiving. I lost the role they'd assigned me. The one who succeeded quietly so they could feel generous without actually giving anything. The one who didn't need help so they didn't have to offer it. The one who made them look good by not asking for anything in return. That version of me doesn't exist anymore. If you're listening to this and you've ever been punished for being self-sufficient or made to feel selfish for protecting what you built, I want you to hear this clearly. Success doesn't mean you deserve less. Independence doesn't mean you're not entitled to fairness. And being capable doesn't mean you should be excluded. You don't owe access to people who measure your worth by how little you ask of them. You don't owe loyalty to systems that punish you for thriving. And you don't need permission to step out of a story that only works when you stay small. Sometimes peace doesn't come from forgiveness. Sometimes it comes from distance, from clarity, from finally saying, "This ends with me." I used my share of the inheritance to pay off my student loans. All of them. Then I bought a small condo in Somerville with the rest. Something entirely mine. In my name only. No co-signers. No favors owed. Just a place where the only voices that matter are the ones I choose to let in. Last month, I made equity partner at my firm. My mentor took me to dinner. My colleagues sent flowers. My best friend from law school flew in from Chicago to celebrate. We ate Thai food on my couch and laughed until midnight about absolutely nothing important. Nobody asked me to sign anything away. Nobody told me I didn't deserve it. Nobody measured my success against someone else's need. And when I went to bed that night, in my own home, built with my own hands, I didn't feel like I'd won anything. I just felt like I'd finally stopped losing. If this story stayed with you, if it reminded you of something you've been carrying, share it. Not for me, for the person who needs to hear that walking away isn't giving up. Sometimes it's the only way to finally stand up.